When you think of Prudential, you think of the Rock. Meet one of the rocks of the American Heart Association. Coming up next on Carolina People. Good morning. Welcome to Carolina People. This morning we're at the Embassy Suites Resort at Kingston Plantation. We're focused on the 13th annual American Heart Ball. It'll be held here this Saturday, and we're visiting with Laymon, one of its longtime volunteers.
Hey, Greg.
Good morning, Ann.
Good morning. How are you?
Thanks so much for coming
Thank
in.
you. Thank you. I'm excited
early at
to be
7
here.
a.m. I know you were walking your dog early this morning, so you can get over here and get in with us. We really appreciate it.
Thank you. Thank you for inviting me.
Heart Ball's like, 100-some hours away now.
Just around the corner.
The clock is ticking.
And I know there's women still out there shopping for dresses. They'll be doing that till Friday night.
And you're ready, though, already.
I need the shoes.
Oh, you
I need the shoes, but I've
yeah.
got the dress. Yep.
I see you've got a nice red top on there, recognizing Heart Month, and of course, and heart disease impacting so many folks that it's a critical month to really bring it to folks' awareness.
Yep. Heart Month is needs more recognition, I think. I don't think people realized how much heart disease affects everybody, not just adults, but children as well.
Right, and women. You know, and of course, Go Red for Women kicked off a few years ago with Laura Bush as the national representative of Go Red for Women, and I think it helped bring out, albeit as you say, even in children, it's not as widely recognized, and of course in women as well.
That's true. That's true.
It impacts a lot of folks. A lot has to happen this week to make this Saturday night's event a real success. And what are some of the things going on right now behind the scenes that folks who either attend or hear about the event may not be thinking about?
Well, I think there's a lot of organization in the background. We've had the silent auction, so each of the auction items that have been donated need an auction sheet, need to figure out where we're going to display them in Kingston Plantation, in the ballroom or in the auction rooms, and then how we're going to close out the procedure with auction items. Then there's registration, and if you have people coming in anytime between, I think it's 6:30 and 8 before dinner starts, and they have to be registered, they have to get their auction number if they're going to bid on anything, so we need their financial, the credit card or whatever, however they're going to pay, we need to have that all organized, and that takes a lot of work, just the registration, because you'll have, almost 800, 900 people start coming in almost at the same time, so you've got to have your volunteers organized. And then, of course, they're doing the food here at Kingston, so their chefs have to know the head count and how many people we're going to have, and then we have to have the table set and who's sitting where and where the sponsor's sitting, and there's a lot of background stuff going on, absolutely.
It is amazing, Ann. And, when you think about that, and you just hit the tip of the iceberg, there's so much. Of course, you are so active with decorations year after year. Rita Siegel-Levine will be with us this Friday, which we're excited about the day before the event to talk about. Of course, she's not even going to be able to attend this year, but knowing there's so much that has to happen on that end. You all coming in on Saturday, I know you've been active with that in the past, but to make the place shine, to receive 900 folks.
Yeah. And that's what's exciting is you go in there on a Saturday morning and they're just starting to set the tables and everything, and then the decorating people come with our flowers or whatever we're going to put in this year, and I won't reveal that. And then right before everybody attends, and they go around and they light all the little votive candles, or if they're having, I don't know if they're having ficus trees with lights around the exterior, but it just gives a whole different look to that ballroom from Saturday morning to Saturday night, and that's exciting, just
and
watching
course,
it.
For us, we were here last week filming to try to recognize the importance of the event. Carmine will be with us tomorrow, who's very active here, has been here about a year. But to hear him last week, Sabina Robinson was with us talking about 7,000 plus pieces of silverware that'll be out that night. And as you say, of course, you were here at a Heart Ball meeting recently to meet their new chef, who's gone above and beyond.
Oh, that was
really
awesome what he showed us he could do.
All out. I mean, they are into it. And of course, having been away for 4 years, to be back, as Joe Delaney said, welcome home.
Yeah. I'm looking forward to a stellar event. This should be exciting to be back here again.
This is the 13th annual. You've been to a couple in the past?
I have been to every one but two.
No.
And that's because of surgery. I had open heart surgery almost 3 years ago, and then last year I had a bunion surgery, so I didn't have anything to go with the surgical boots. So I didn't have a dress, so I didn't come, but I did come and help decorate that morning. So I got to see some of the auction items set up in the ballroom before it was completed.
Yes,
so
and
I have
even though
participated.
I'm laughing about that, I'm surely not laughing about the heart surgery 3 years ago, and that is not your first.
No, that was my fourth, and people say, oh, you look a little young for that, but I had a childhood defect. I was born with a hole in my heart, and it's tetralogy flow, which is probably the #1 childhood defect.
Really?
For a heart defect is a tetralogy of flow, and it's a lot of people hear of blue babies.
Oh, yeah,
and
sure.
That's what I was. I was a blue baby, and what it is the oxygen misses, or the blood misses that loop that goes into the lungs to pick up the oxygen, which gives it the red color. So it kind of skips that part of the circulation through the heart, and it ends up being a bluish color. So I had a blue tint to my fingernails and a blue tint to my lips when I was younger.
Really?
And I remember a teacher asking me if I had grape juice for breakfast.
No.
And I said, no, that's just the way I was born. So I had my first surgery at about 3.5. I had my second surgery at 7, and they didn't have the technology to correct me. So they didn't do anything. They opened me up. The surgeon came out and told my parents, there's nothing we can do. If it was my daughter, I'd stop here and just hope for research. And then I had my third corrective surgery at 15. Well, I won't even say what year it was, but I was 15, and they actually put a Teflon patch over the hole in my heart.
Really?
And I had no problems for 28 years. It was great. I hiked with Girl Scouts
until
a
3 years
couple years ago. Yeah.
And you said at age 3. Now they recognized it though at birth. It was a congenital.
I don't know if they did with my birth. My pediatrician noticed something was different. That I had the blue tint and that I would tire out easily, and he's the one that I believe diagnosed it. And I was in Northwest Indiana at the time, and they sent me to Chicago, so my surgeon and my cardiologist were both in Chicago for the first 2 surgeries.
Wow. Well, that's tremendous. Of course, you were in a big city like that, and
That
hopefully
helps.
they will have seen or had seen as many opportunities that you may not have seen in a small town. If you've been in the middle of virtually nowhere, it would have been difficult.
Definitely.
That is critical. You know, Ashlyn Clark, who I think you've met but may not have yet heard talk about being, albeit she found that out, she was with us last Thursday here and found out at age 17 as all of her extensions, her feet and her hands were turning blue. And of course, she was wearing a blue top that morning. I said, that blue? And she said, even darker.
Oh, my.
So it was and of course, something that, as you say, almost always, and of course, much like you probably, and I guess I'll be interested to know if this is the same case. At 3 years ago, are you still seeing a pediatric cardiologist?
Yes, I actually had my surgery
she mentioned the same thing.
at MUSC because they have a wonderful pediatric cardiology department.
Right.
And actually once a month they fly their pediatric cardiology department up here to Myrtle Beach and meet the patients in this area.
Really?
So I meet with them once a year when they're up here, usually in the fall. It's my appointment time. But I was oldest person on the floor when I had my surgery at MUSC. They sort of called me like the grandmother because everybody else was little kids.
Yeah, sure, tiny.
And here they were bringing me hamburgers and stuff for when I was able to eat something, and I wanted something more than hamburgers or cheeseburgers. So they had to order from the adult wings for my food.
That's hilarious.
So yeah, it was kind of funny.
In the pediatric cardiology, that's great that they make that effort to fly them up. I guess we don't have a local pediatric cardiologist.
No, we don't.
But the opportunity to be able to be that close, as you say, in some parts of the country you'd be traveling 300 miles
Exactly.
to find a pediatric cardiologist. So
or you go to a normal cardiologist and they treat the blood pressure, I call it the old fart diseases, but the older adult cardiac problems, and they're not used to the young adults and the problems that they have, so you need that specialization.
Now, at age 3, and can you imagine, of course, you had that teacher, ask you if you had grape juice that morning. You probably remember instances like that, but do you remember any impact it was having on your life?
I hated gym class. I hated gym class because I couldn't keep up with the kids. I was always the last one to be picked for the basketball or volleyball or whatever team sport we had to play in gym.
Right.
And because I couldn't keep up, I'd rather just stand against the wall and not get picked. Wow. And I remember that a lot. And then after I had surgery, I went out and bought a 5-speed bicycle, and I could actually ride around the block. I'd never been able to do that.
That was after your second surgery, after your second one.
No, it was actually after my third one.
After your third
Because after my
one.
second,
when
I
you were a
wasn't
teenager,
corrected.
That is fascinating.
Yeah.
And, when you think about the impact at an early age, and, of course, having classmates, and did you all ever get in discussions about it? I mean, was there anything, did they understand, or had you, after your second surgery, maybe you were living in the same place that entire time, is that right?
Let's see, when I was 7, I was in central Indiana, but I would still go back up to Chicago for my appointments and everything.
Right.
But I think when you're at that age, kids don't talk about defects or what's different than you. They just make fun of you.
Right, yeah.
They
She's
don't.
the slow one.
Yeah, exactly. You
Not
don't want her
picking
on
her.
your team.
Yeah.
Exactly. That's what happens.
Wow, Ann, that is incredible. Of course, your involvement with the Art Association, as you said, you've been here a good while. What brought you to, well, you've been in the Myrtle Beach area a good while.
22 years.
Is that
22
right?
years. I came down with a gentleman that did end up marrying.
Right.
And he was with radio. And I had met him my first job out of college. I was selling radio advertising,
Is
and
that
he was
right?
at the
Where
radio
was that
station. That was in Michigan City, Indiana, which is right on the lake. It's an hour east of Chicago. And he was the morning, it was an easy listening station. So he was
Right.
the morning person and the operations director and all that. And
Wow.
I started selling radio advertising, and he got me my first actually advertising deal, which was the Republican candidate for the elections that time.
Really?
And I
There
actually
in
got,
Indiana, yeah.
I actually got 2 tickets to the Republican picnic or something, and I said,
Wow.
well, you help me get this ad, will you go to the picnic with me? And
Get
he
that.
did, and we just started dating, and he ended up down here with a job.
Right.
And I said, you're 900 miles away with babes on the beach. I'll be down shortly. So I came down 3 weeks later, and he's still in the area. He's in real estate. I'm in real estate. We're no longer married, but we still remain very close friends. We
That's-
have a lovely daughter who's healthy, no heart defect or anything with her.
Now, was this something that actually, and this was a congenital I mean, is this something that had followed in bloodlines? Had you been worried about your daughter?
We never thought. We never thought it was genetic until 3 years ago. I had a nephew born, and his name is Killian. And I can remember my brother, he called me, I was at work, and he said, Ann, what heart defect do you have? And I said, tetralogy of Fallot. Why? He said, I haven't called Mom yet, but we just had the first ultrasound. He said, our child will have the same defect. And I went,
Oh, my God.
I was crushed.
Wow. Oh, yeah.
But I knew with technology that it would be a piece of cake. It would be so much different than what I had gone through as a child. So
Right.
my little nephew Killian was born 3 years ago, and they already knew what needed to be done. He had his first surgery at 13 days old.
No way.
Unbelievable. that
Now, do they
can
have to
that.
do the same things now that you would have been faced with, even on, let's say, on your third surgery at 15, or is it advanced much? Have you
think it
seen
has-
Killian or talked to his dad about that?
Yeah,
Right,
I got
sure.
to spend some time shortly after his surgery
Right.
when he was up and about, and he just couldn't go back to school yet. But he's, I think he's adapted easier. I think it was easier for him to get around and everything. And
But it is open heart surgery.
it's open heart
I mean,
surgery.
no matter what.
And I just can't imagine someone, a little baby,
Yeah.
having the techniques and everything to deal with that for someone that's just that tiny. But they
Right.
can do that. They can actually do some surgeries on unborn fetuses in the womb.
And
That's
there
just
is a
incredible.
doctor in Boston who was one of the first about 25 years ago. Who was the first in the country, I believe, that had done a surgery. I read about that in this month's Myrtle Beach Area Business Journal. Paul Gable does a piece about his son who had open heart surgery right at birth.
Okay.
Right at birth, 25 years ago, and they're in Boston, and it is much more common, I think, than folks know about.
Yeah, I think it
Surgeries
is.
or children born with holes in their hearts. In this instance, it was a reversal
Reverse,
of
I've
the,
heard
and I
that.
wish I could remember what it's called. It was an acronym, VTR, I believe, or TVR. It was fascinating hearing that discussion as the father writes about his son, who later became a tennis scholar or had a tennis scholarship to Newberry and now a sports editor. It's fascinating to think about, obviously, folks like yourself that have gone a long time but still have to be checked regularly.
Yep. And then my nephew Killian, he will have another checkup, I think this summer. And he actually had a bovine jugular vein put in this past summer. And they're hoping that will get him through his teenage years, and he hopefully will not have another surgery until he's maybe in his late teens.
Say that again, a bovine jugular vein. We're thinking bovine like...
Well, my
like
valve that I had replaced was a bovine pericardium valve, so
Isn't that right?
it's cow.
From a cow.
From a
yeah.
cow. Mm-hmm.
Wow.
It's either that or mechanical, and mechanical, I don't want to be on Coumadin the rest of my life, but
Right.
that's another option, is mechanical valves.